Welcome to the Crane Bag Podcast. I am Jay Leeming, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who has been able to support this podcast in the past through Patreon. There are over 100 episodes of this podcast available for free now online, and I'm only able to do that because of folks who financially support this podcast through a monthly donation. If you are able to join them, please do so. It gives you free access to regular online storytelling events, which I do. I'm telling the Odyssey now. I told the Mahabharata last winter, Gilgamesh before that. So if you're able to join them, it's way cool for you and for the podcast as well. So you can do that at patreon.com/storyjl. So Patreon, patreon.com/storyjl. Thanks so much. And now let's hear a story. So 9 years passed. So the Greek army was camped on the Trojan shore for 9 years. Over that time, they made themselves at home. The pathways between the boats, between the tents, became trails. Their tents, many of them, became wooden huts, built with trees they felled from the forests up and down the coast. There were those among them who were good at singing songs, others who were good at cutting hair or cooking. So it became a great, wild, unruly village of thousands of soldiers on that shore. And they lived by sailing up and down the coast and pillaging the small towns and villages that they found there, stealing all the food they could, and sometimes stealing young women as well. Far away in the city of Troy, life went on. In that beautiful, circular city, filled with gardens, the people lived as they always had. And Hector, the son of King Priam, he and his wife Andromache soon had a child. Astyanax was his name. And often Hector would ride the horses in the great corral there inside the city walls. For he was the one who could best bring the new stallions into service, could best tame those stallions. And often his wife Andromache would come with their baby boy in her arms, and she would say, "Look, look, there's Daddy." And they would see Hector riding proudly on one of those horses. He and the horse together, galloping like a single wave on the sea. So 9 years passed. Months passed, often without a battle, without a death. And then one day, something happened, which was to change everything that followed. Because one day a boat sailed down the shore, a boat filled with onions, potatoes, and cabbages, and the wind drove it onto the shore. And the Greek soldiers came to that boat, for they had been pillaging and raiding everywhere they could. This army needed food. and they demanded to see what was in the boat, in the hold of the ship. And they found only potatoes, onions, and cabbages. But maybe because they were sick of potatoes, onions, and cabbages, and maybe because they had raided several farms just the day before, they did not mess with this boat. They left it as it was. The captain said he'd been driven there by the wind, and he hoped soon to be off and to sail further south. So they left that boat alone, and went back to their fires, the soldiers did, went back to gambling and eating, and singing songs and telling jokes and telling stories of home around their fires. Because of this, no one saw the old man who slipped out of that boat, an old man in a long cloak, who had a wooden staff with him. There were golden ribbons dangling from the top of that staff. He was a priest of Apollo. He slipped away from that boat, and he walked into the Greek camp. No one noticed him as he walked between the tents. Past the soldiers, there was one getting his beard trimmed. There was another one shouting with joy as he won a gambling match he'd lost for 3 days straight. There was another tasting some soup, seeing if it needed some more salt. He walked between the tents and the huts. And then he asked a soldier where to find the leader of the Greeks. And he walked to the great tent of Agamemnon, a beautiful, large structure. The cloth of that tent, woven by the hands of many women over many days. The fabric, the wool of that cloth, gathered from sheep tended by young men dreaming in the hills for many days, many months. It was an expensive and beautiful tent. And this man entered it, and there was Agamemnon himself in a great throne, and around him were servants of all kinds, and others as well, other kings of the Greeks, and there was wine and honey and roast meat to be had. And he stepped before him, and Agamemnon looked at him, and there was a silence, and this man spoke into that silence, and he said, "Greetings to you, Lord Agamemnon, king of all the Greeks. I have come to you to beg for the life of my daughter Chryseis, who you took from our village some time ago, and have brought here to your camp. I have come to beg for her life. I offer you gold and silver past counting. I offer you these things in return for her life. For my wish is that she grow old, not far away in the land of Greece, but here in my own village, close to me and my wife. I do not desire that she should be taken across the sea. Please, dear man, hear my wishes, hear my desire. I offer you gold and silver, beautiful, precious things, in return for what is precious to me, the life of my dear one, my dear daughter." Agamemnon looked at him, and he said, "No, I will not return her to you. She is mine. I have taken her. She is mine. She will grow old with me there in Greece. She will share my bed and my house, for she is beautiful to me, and the work of her hands is beautiful. No, I like her. I will keep her. And you must leave. You must leave this tent before I become angry, old man, because my anger is a dangerous thing." And the old priest of Apollo heard these words, and he did not answer. He was silent, and he turned, and he walked away. And he walked through the Greek camp, and he walked back to the shore. And he walked along the sand beside the crashing sea, back towards his boat, which had, beneath those onions, potatoes, and cabbages, many bars of silver and gold hidden. He walked towards that boat, but before he got there, he stopped. He fell down, overcome with grief. He fell to his knees in the sand, and he looked high up into the sky, and he said, "Apollo, you God who works from afar, beautiful one, hear my words, hear my prayer. Curse this man, Agamemnon. Bring suffering to him. I have been humiliated, driven from him. He has not listened to my speech, listened to my desires. He has taken my dear daughter from me, the precious pearl of my life. O Apollo, if ever I honored you with gifts of roast meat or bright words of smoke rising up into the heavens towards Olympus, hear me now. Bring suffering to this man Agamemnon and to all the Greeks." So he spoke, and his bright words went up into the air, even as his tears fell down. It was a dog at first. A stray dog some soldiers found beside the water. They took him in. They fed him on scraps beside the fire. They enjoyed having him around. It made their campfire there, their tents and all this camp of the Greeks, it made it seem more like a home to have a dog. They named this dog Lucas. And often they would take a stick and throw it, and Lucas would grab it and run back. So they enjoyed having this dog. But one day, Lucas was not doing well. One day he did not run after a stick that they threw, but stayed there by the fire. And then they noticed that he was shivering. This went on for several days. After a while, he did not eat. They took a bone and put it there beside his head. He licked it a little, but he was not hungry. He shivered more and more. And finally, one morning, they found Lucas dead. Soon other dogs in the camp began to die as well. And then a horse, they noticed, was feverish. And this horse lay down as well, and twisting and shivering, this horse died. Soon other horses died. And then one day a soldier who'd been out as a watchman all night long, he came back shivering and cold, though the sun was bright in the sky, though Helios was shining down, giving his warmth to the world. This man was cold and shivering. And soon he died as well, passed away in his tent. Now many soldiers became sick, feverish, and twisting and writhing in their beds. They died. They found them cold and dead in the morning. They burned their bodies there on the shore. They sang the old sad songs, the smoke rising up into the sky. And then one night the seer Calchas heard a sound. A whistling sound, as of something shooting through the air. Suddenly he found he was wide awake in his tent. He sat bolt upright in his cot, and he listened. The sound came again, and then again. Whistling, shrieking. Fearfully, he walked from his cot to the door of his tent. And then, slowly, he pulled the tent flap aside. And there, in the moonlight, he saw the god Apollo himself, pulling arrows from his quiver and shooting them into the tents of the Greek army. Again and again, he shot these arrows. The twang of his bowstring in the night air was a horrible thing to hear. Calchas knew the men who were sleeping in those tents. He knew their names. He knew they would be found cold and dead in the morning. He knew that every twang of Apollo's bowstring meant another life snuffed out, another soul sent down into the eternal gloom of the underworld. shivering. He went back to his cot. He sat there listening in the darkness. The sound of that bowstring rang out. Calchas listened to it for a long time. Well, the next day, Achilles called for a council, and everyone went to the great tent of Agamemnon and gathered there. They were all there, the leaders of the Greeks. Ajax was there, and Menelaus, and Agamemnon himself, of course, and Odysseus, and Diomedes, and Teucer the archer, Machaon the healer. They all came, Phoenix, the old adviser to them all, and Nestor, the old man who was given 3 lifetimes by the gods. They were all gathered there, and the Myrmidons were there as well, the soldiers in blue and gold armor who'd come with Achilles from his land of Phthia. And Achilles took up the staff of speech and stood before them all, and he said, "Now, dear friends, certainly we must return home to Greece. Certainly we will no longer take the fine city of Troy. It is impossible for us to return Helen to the arms of her husband Menelaus. We will meet failure here. We must turn and sail back home, for now we face 2 enemies, the Trojans and their armies, and plague, sickness, disease. These 2 things have come to grind us down. We must all die here unless we return home. But before we do so, let us hear from a seer among us. If there is one here, one who can look into the unseen world, into the invisible realms, and tell us, because perhaps we have done something wrong, something which has offended the gods. And if this can be changed, if we can make peace between ourselves and the gods, then perhaps we may yet go forward. Perhaps we may yet take the fine city of Troy. So, if there is a seer here among us, let him speak now." And Calchas stood up and walked to the center of the room. And he said, "Achilles, I know why we are suffering. I know why the gods have brought this plague to us all. But before I speak, I must ask for your protection. For the words that I say, the truth which I must utter, will anger someone here who is very powerful. And so I seek your protection before I go any further." And Achilles laughed and said, "Have no fear, Calchas. I will protect you. Yes, you have my protection. I will protect you, even if the man you anger is Agamemnon himself." And he laughed, and many others did as well. But Calchas did not laugh. And he turned, and with stone-cold eyes he looked at them all, and he said, "The girl must be returned to her father. We have angered Apollo. That man was a priest of Apollo. He has prayed to Apollo that we be punished for what we have done. And Apollo has heard him, and he has brought this sickness upon us, which lays us waste and kills us here, feverish in our tents in the night. We must return the girl to the old man, the priest of Apollo. If this is done, Apollo will forgive us, and no one else will die of sickness." And Agamemnon stood up and said, "You prophet of evil! You always prophesy death and destruction for me and my army. Never do you bring good tidings of victory and roses and happiness and joy. Always with you it is smoke and ravens and bodies writhing on the shore. Bones and ghosts is all you speak of. But I hear your words, and I care for this army. Yes, I will do what is necessary. I will give up the girl Chryseis. I will surrender her to the old man. Yes, let someone take her back to that village. Let her be returned to her father. But if this is done, I must still have a prize. For I am the leader of us all. I cannot be empty. I cannot have no prize of my own. I require a princess. It would not be right for me, the leader of us all, not to have a fine, beautiful woman to share my bed. So I say, I will surrender the girl, but another princess must be found." And Achilles said, "Agamemnon, find another princess? What do you mean? We are at war. We don't have another princess just lying around. We have what we have. You must make a sacrifice for the good of the entire army. You must think not of yourself and your ego, but all of us. When we conquer Troy, there will be gold and silver, gifts of many kinds. There will be slaves, and there will be women enough for you. But as for now, we do not have another girl just lying around. You must make this sacrifice for the good of all of us." "Achilles," said Agamemnon, "how dare you speak in this way to me? I who have sacrificed so much for all of us. I who have brought us all across the sea here to fight this glorious war, which will make us all rich men, rich back in our homes with the proud and beautiful spoils of Troy. How dare you speak in this way? I am the king of us all. I require a woman for my bed. If there is one not to be had, I will take someone else's. I will take a girl from Odysseus or Ajax, or perhaps you yourself. Yes, who is that fine, beautiful girl with the lovely raven dark hair? Briseis, yes. I will take her from you. And then you will know that I am the leader here, that I am in charge of all of us, and you are but a soldier in my army." "Gah! Silence, dog-face!" Achilles cried, and he took hold of his sword, and he was about to run Agamemnon through there and then and spill his blood on the thirsty ground. But as his fingers took hold of the hilt of his sword, suddenly everything stopped. Everything was stone still, and he felt cold, silvery fingers in his hair, pulling his long hair back, pulling his head back, and then he felt silvery words in his ear, and it was the goddess Athena. "Achilles," she said, "Achilles, do not do this. No. Do not kill this man Agamemnon here. No. Wound him with your words. Use your words only. Sheath your sword. Yes, let loose your anger, but not through violence. Use only your words, and I promise you, you will find glory soon. You will find glory. They will come to you, Agamemnon, all of them will, begging for your help in this war when things go badly for them, and you shall have fame everlasting. Do not kill this man, Agamemnon. This is my desire, and the desire of Hera as well, the queen of heaven." Around Achilles, everything was frozen. All he could hear was Athena's voice, whispering in his ear like a silvery running stream. He heard this voice, and he said, "I shall obey you, O goddess." And then her silvery, beautiful hands let go of his hair and slipped away into the shadows, and the room began to move and breathe again. And Achilles sheathed his sword, and he turned on Agamemnon, and he said, "You drunken man, drunk on your own power, you who always stay in the rear of the army, strategizing from behind, making your plans, never risking your life in the front lines as I have done hundreds, if not thousands of times before. I have no problem with the Trojans. They have not attacked me. They have not come to my land of Phthia and attacked my house or attempted to kill my family. No, we are here simply because of you. Out of the kindness of our hearts, we have come to defend your honor and defend the honor of your brother Menelaus. I will not do this any more, that is what I say. No, I will fight no more for you, old man. I will go back to my camp. I and all my Myrmidons shall leave you. But I swear, there shall come a day when you are hit hard by the Trojans, when man-slaying Hector is laying waste to all of you. You shall come begging to me, begging for my help in this war of yours, and I shall say no." And he gave an order, and all of the Myrmidons as one stood up, resplendent in their blue and gold armor. And as one they all walked out of the tent. And Achilles threw the staff of speech down to the ground, and he followed them out. And in that tent now there was silence, and no one said anything for a long time. Well, the next day, Odysseus went to the tent of Agamemnon early in the morning, and he spoke to the guards at the door. And soon Chryseis came out, and she and Odysseus walked away from Agamemnon's tent and through the camp of the Greeks, past the tents and the huts they had built, until they came to the shore. And there was a boat there, and they boarded that boat and they set sail. The wind filled the sails as the waves crashed around them. And they sailed up the coast until they came to a small town. And the sailors on board brought the ship to shore. And then Odysseus and Chryseis got out and walked toward the town. And there he was, the priest of Apollo, the old man, standing outside the gates of the city. "Ah, my dear daughter," he said. "Ah, my dear daughter, so good to see you again, so good to have you home at last." And he embraced his daughter, and tears of joy slid down his cheeks. And as Chryseis held her father, she remembered the camp of the Greeks. She remembered Agamemnon, fierce, dangerous, and beautiful. She remembered that tent full of men shouting, arguing, fighting over her. "It's all over," her father said. "It's all over." "Yes," Chryseis said. "It's all over." And later that day, 2 soldiers went to the tent of Achilles, fearful of his anger. And they went to the door and greeted him and told him their business. And he went inside the tent, and a moment later Achilles came out, holding Briseis by the hand, Briseis, the girl with long raven-dark hair. And he looked at the 2 soldiers, nervous as they were, and he said, "Do not fear, gentlemen. Do not fear me, my anger, or my strength. I know this is Agamemnon's evil, and it is not yours." And he turned to Briseis. "Goodbye," he said. "Goodbye." And a moment later, she left with the 2 soldiers, and they took her to the tent of Agamemnon. And that night Achilles walked along the shore of the sea, the waves crashing and roaring. And Achilles was crashing and roaring as well, yelling into the surf as it thundered against the beach. And after a while, as the stars shone down, a woman came swimming out of those waves. And she stepped onto the shore, and she walked towards Achilles, and it was Thetis, the goddess of the deep waters, his mother. And she said, "Oh, my son, what has you here in sorrow, raging against the deep sea? What has troubled your heart?" And Achilles said, "Agamemnon has humiliated me in front of all the others. He has taken away my prize, the girl Briseis. He has treated me like a grain of sand on the beach, to be ground down into nothing. Mother, I was to have great fame. I was to be somebody in this world, to make a difference in this world. But now it seems I shall be nothing, nothing at all." And he crashed down into the sand and sat there, and he began to weep. And Thetis, his mother, sat down beside him, and she stroked his long, long hair, and she said, "Achilles, my son, do not grieve. The fame you seek shall be yours. Your name shall ring down the ages. It will be sung by bards in distant lands, thousands of years from now. For I shall go to the shining, bright world of Olympus, and there I will speak with Zeus, the cloud-gatherer, and I will tell him of this injustice which has been done to you. And he will make a change, and he will ensure that all shall be well. Do not grieve, my son. Do not sorrow." So, saying these words, Thetis kissed him on the forehead, and then she stepped up into the air. Higher and higher she went, up above the camp of the Greeks, where the soldiers slept, high up above the brilliant city of Troy, above Mount Ida, that mountain sacred to the goddess. Up through the clouds she went, far up away from the world of humans. And finally at last she came to the great shining peak of Olympus, that great mountain on which all the gods and goddesses of this world live and have their palaces. And there she found Zeus. He was apart from the others. He was away from his great palace of Olympus. He was standing on a rocky crag, looking down at the earth, lit by the stars and the moon. And her feet came to rest on the ground of that sacred place. And she walked towards Zeus, and she looked at him with light in her eyes and addressed him with shining words, saying, "Greetings to you, O Zeus, O Lord of the lightning, you who gather the clouds and send rain down onto the earth, bringing life to the world below. There are those who say that the lightning and the storm are only dangerous. They bring fear and trouble to the world. But I say that they are beautiful also. So I greet you, O beautiful one, O Zeus, Lord of the lightning." And Zeus looked at her, looked at Thetis, the beautiful goddess of the deep waters, and he said, "What is it that you want?" And she came closer to him and looked him right in the eyes, and she said, "Zeus, do you remember the net which held you?" And Zeus did remember. He remembered how once, long ago, all of the gods had risen up against him, rebelled against him. Apollo, Poseidon, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Ares, Artemis, all of them. They were sick and tired of how he lorded it over them all. And in secret, Hephaestus had constructed a net, invisible, but incredibly strong. And he had placed this net over Zeus's throne and rigged it up through invisible ropes running through the ceiling, cables of the strongest metals known. And unknowing, Zeus had sat upon his throne, and Hephaestus had flicked a lever, a hidden, secret lever, and just like that, the net had snapped Zeus up, and he had hung there, in his throne room, strung up like an animal caught in a trap by a simple hunter in a forest on earth. And Hephaestus had cried out so that all the gods could hear, and they came running to that throne room, and they laughed and cackled at him, the Lord of the lightning. And he swung this way and that, and he yelled and he stormed, but it did no good. And his lightning bolts could not break the strength of that net. And he cursed and he stormed, and then he turned silent. And the invisible ropes of that net dug into his skin, binding him. He felt like a fish dragged up into the air, away from the magic and power and the freedom he had known. They had all laughed, all of them, except for Thetis, who remembered how once Zeus had desired her. And his desire made her feel like a bright flower. And feeling this again inside her, she turned from the others and slipped away. She left them laughing behind her, and she went away from Olympus, and went drifting, flying down through the air, down from those bright heights. And at last she came to the earth and entered a cavern there. Down and down she went into the darkness, for she was a goddess of the deep places. She plunged down into the absolute depths of this world, of creation itself, until at last she came to Tartarus, that dark place that is the jail house of the gods. And there at the great iron door there was a giant, and his name was Aegeon, and he had 100 hands, And she told him of what was happening there on Olympus, how Zeus had been strung up like a fish in a net, and all the gods were laughing and jeering at him. And in a flash, Aegeon had stormed up to the heights of Olympus, and Thetis had followed. And suddenly he was simply there, standing beside the throne of Zeus, with all his 100 hands, like a great thundercloud himself, a mountainous being. And in each of his hands there was a different weapon, a sword, an axe, a magical wind, a great fire, a poisonous scouring wave, boulders and broken glass, acids and bones, shadows and death were in each of his hands, all of those 100 hands. And he gave a great roar which split the air into shrieking pieces that went splintering away. And all of the gods saw him, and they knew whose side he was on. And slowly, quietly, Hephaestus found that secret lever again in the wall. And in a moment, the net lowered to the ground, and Zeus was set free. And he took hold of his thunderbolts, and he yelled it stormed at them all. And he told 2 of them, the ringleaders, Apollo and Poseidon, to go down to earth and to serve a human king named Laomedon, and to build the city of Troy. Yes, said Zeus, I remember. What is it you want from me now? And Thetis said, my son Achilles has been dishonored, disgraced by that foul king Agamemnon. He has taken Briseis, the girl of his heart, away from him. He has humiliated him in front of all the army. Zeus, take action. Do something to restore the honor and glory of my son, for the fates have decreed that he is destined to live a glorious but short life. Allow him this, please. Make Agamemnon and all the Greeks suffer, so that they cry out for the help of my son Achilles, so that they come to him desperate for his aid, when the man-slaying Hector is laying waste to their army. Father Zeus, please do this for me. And Zeus said, this is a nasty business, but it shall be done. I swear it. And he nodded his head, and as he did so, a ripple passed over the great river Styx, flowing through the underworld, the river by which all the gods swear their oaths. And a ripple passed as well through all of creation, changing the fabric of what is. So every stone and tree and leaf, every mountain and ocean wave was transformed by this oath, and the future was changed. And down on earth, at the center of the world, at the oracle of Delphi, the dragon priestess felt the change, felt it within her, and she knew what it meant. And Calchas, the seer among the Greeks, he felt this change as well. In his sleep he felt it, a tremor moving through the earth, through the air, through all of creation. And the next morning, Hector was walking early in the city of Troy, walking there in one of the gardens of that city, as the birds sang in the trees, and the breeze blew through the leaves of those trees. And as he walked in that grassy place, he was thinking. He was pondering the Greeks, that Greek army which had been there for 9 long years. The Trojans had lived well despite this. There had been few real battles. But still, they were forever there, a constant threat to their way of life, to the beauty of that city. And Hector was pondering if perhaps this was the day. This was the day to muster the entire Trojan army once again and crush the Greeks there on the shore. For word had come to him Watchers had said that they were decimated by plague and disease, demoralized. They had lost many men, many soldiers they had burned on the shore beside the crashing sea. So he pondered in his heart if perhaps today was the day to attack, to grind them out, to crush that army once and for all. And as he pondered these things, as the birds sang in the trees, he looked down into a pool of water there in that garden. And as he did so, a ripple passed across those waters. And Hector saw this, and thought to himself that yes, the Trojan army would be like a great wave, rippling, crashing, roaring across the land, destroying the Greek army. Yes, today was the day. And with certain strides, he walked from that garden, and he gave an order, and the Trojans began to arm themselves. And later that morning, in the camp of the Greeks, Calchas suddenly knew where he had to be. He began to walk. He walked from his tent, through the camp of the Greeks, through the tents, past the huts, past the great tent of Agamemnon, and at last he came to the border of their camp there. There were watchmen there. They were bored. They were tired. Nothing had happened for many days. Some of them were playing dice. Others were sleeping off the drinking they'd done the night before. But there were 2 soldiers there, keeping watch all the same, bored, talking, looking at the ground. But Calchas strode up to them, and suddenly he simply stood beside them, and his eyes looked far out across the field. Like a hawk, he looked far off into the distance, towards the city of Troy. The 2 soldiers, instinctively, they looked where he was looking. They looked far across the great grassy field there to the city of Troy, beautiful, shimmering in the heat. But they saw nothing unusual. "What do you see?" they said. Calchas said nothing. He continued to stare into the distance. They turned again, and they looked. And now they saw it. Now they saw dust rising far off. Dust rising from thousands of feet. Dust rising as a great army came marching away from Troy across the grassy, dusty ground towards the Greeks. Thousands of horses and chariots, swords, bows, arrows, shields, weapons of destruction of all kinds. And the dust went higher and higher up into the sky, so that even the gods saw it. And then at last Calchas spoke, and he said, "Here they come." One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung, Alchemical Studies, page 265. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to this story, being a part of it. Thank you for being here with me. Let's have that quote one more time. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is a story with a lot of darkness in it. It doesn't give us characters who are moral examples of how we should act. I think that's pretty clear, right? There's a lot of evil and trouble in this story. Evil. I mean, I hesitate to use that word, I guess. There's no dark lords doing magic. There's no evil witches, quote unquote. There are human beings making mistakes, doing bad things. So that is its appeal, and perhaps it can drive you away as well. I mean, if you want magic and stuff, well, this story doesn't have so much of it, at least at this point. But we see human beings under pressure in a difficult situation making bad choices. But all the same, even saying that, I'm reminded of how much of this story has been fated through the fates themselves, the Oracle of Delphi, the gods. It's all a part of it. The human decisions are, enmeshed in this larger tapestry involving forces they do not always perceive. And they make an effort to perceive them through, for example, the seer Calchas, and in a larger sense through the Oracle at Delphi. But it is impossible to see everything, to know the entire cosmos. If you did, you would be a god. You wouldn't be a limited human being. And so they make their decisions, they make their choices, and they think they are their own choices. They think they have individual will, but it's hard to say sometimes if they really do. So something to consider on our own lives, how we are turning out, how we have turned out. That first relationship, that job we had, that housemate, the parents we had, the country we live in. How much of that is up to us? How much of that can be chosen? We love choice in the modern world. We like to think we are the architects of our destiny. But this story, I think, says that we are not always architects of our destiny. But that said, Agamemnon sure knows how to kind of piss people off. He treats Achilles badly. He treats the priest of Apollo badly. So one way to look at this story is like, oh, it's Agamemnon. He's the one. He drove away that priest. He's, oh, you priest of Apollo, I don't care. And then Achilles, he treated him badly. He wanted to, he took his prize, this woman, Briseis, from him. But he did that, it seems like his goal was to humiliate him and say, I'm the boss here, you are not. So 10 thoughts come to me when I think of this. Let me try to share some of them. One is women as property, which is annoying and bugs me. I kind of hope it bugs you too. Some have cited that as a reason just not even to pay attention to this story. And well, whatever. I'm not going to tell you what to listen to or not. But yeah, women are property at this point in the story, which is kind of gross and troublesome, to say the least. But I would say the men aren't treated much better. The bulk of the men, the soldiers. In this world, in this time, in this story, women are treated as property, certainly, and men are treated as property as well. Women valued for their beauty, men valued for their strength. They go out there and they fight and die. And the higher up folks have personalities. Helen, Hecuba, Agamemnon, Odysseus, Achilles. But the bulk of the crowd, the tapestry, is all these others who are, again, valued for their beauty, if they are female, valued for their strength, if they are men. And of course, the women are strong. Of course, the men are also beautiful. That is clear, and Homer makes that happen. Homer exemplifies that in describing the beauty of the soldiers as they're killed. It's horrible, it's horrific, it's also beautiful. And again, the women can be very strong in this story also. And my other thought, what was it? Yes, okay, so Agamemnon, dealing with Achilles, he is at pains to show that he is the leader of this expedition. Agamemnon is. And that reflects the whole world we're in, which, as I've said before on this podcast, the Greek world is a broken world at this point. Calling it Greek is already a mistake. That's a modern expression. I use it just because it's easier and because it communicates this story to those who hear it. But they aren't a unified setup. They aren't a unified empire by any stretch. They once were, historically, as far as we can tell, in the Mycenaean times. But then there were disasters, invasions, trouble, and it became a world more like the Middle Ages in Europe, with city-states duking it out sometimes for survival and just kind of holding their barriers behind their walls, So it's a broken world, and because of this, it's not like Agamemnon is the emperor of Greece, the king of Greece, and he's sent there. He's just the most powerful king among many other powerful kings. So his role as leader of the expedition is not completely clear. It's not that strong. I mean, he's got a strong case to be the guy because his brother Menelaus is the one who lost his wife Helen to Paris, and because he's a powerful king. But it's not clear. So this comes up in this conflict with Achilles. That's at the root of it in some ways, is who's in charge here. And Achilles is not a soldier in his army necessarily. He didn't sign up for that. He is a king on his own, basically, of Phthia. He's come with all his soldiers. And why has he come? Well, that's a good question. He's come because of glory. He wants fame. He wants to be a rock star. A lot of the kings have come probably thinking they're going to conquer Troy and come home with lots of gold and silver. This is a story about beautiful thieves. That's what it is. Beautiful thieves. And it may be repugnant to you or to me. It is at times to me. But it is, this is our world, This isn't a fantasy land. This is the headlines right now. These are dictators grabbing power, smashing and getting what they can get. It's interesting, intriguing, and it is food for thought to consider why this story has been so celebrated for so long. Not because it's a bad story, but why is it we've seized upon this? The Odyssey and the Iliad, right? The Iliad, it's pirates attacking a city, conquering it, and grabbing what they can grab. And it's the tragedy of that and the sorrow of that. And the Odyssey, well, that's a whole nother story, so to speak. And it's the story of someone seeking a home. So in both cases, we have people trying to do their best in a world governed by gods and fates, a world which is not cohesive, not all together, not a vast, beautiful tapestry. Exploring the Mahabharata, the epic from India, there you find a world which is more or less together. There are Brahmins, there are kings. It's more so than the world of the Iliad, it seems to me. It's a society that is a cohesive whole. Whereas the Greek world, it's a little more piratical. And again, they're sort of beautiful thieves. So there's something of us in them and something of them in us. And if we can find these characters in ourselves, that will help things. If we can find Vladimir Putin in us, if we can find the Donald Trump within us, that will help things. That will help to restore balance. Because otherwise, we just sit here thinking we're awesome and we're pure and ethically cool. And it's those people over there who are evil. Call them what you will. Call them by whatever foul names you have. No, we want to find that darkness in ourselves. And so in this story, it is helpful to see ourselves in these characters if we can. I'm not saying it's easy. It can be difficult. But we in our own lives, look at the reality we live in. Look at the world we live in, if I cannot be on a soapbox too much, We talk about the corporations, many of us do, who do bad things, who burn down rainforests and, break unions and treat workers badly. They do whatever they want, the corporations do. And that's exactly what we desire. We in our own lives desire to have complete freedom to do what we want to do, to eat ice cream, to buy those strawberries in January, to drive our cars anywhere. And so we are like those corporations. And so we are like Agamemnon, who doesn't think about the long term, so it seems, or has difficulty doing that. And he simply wants what he wants. And he wants a beautiful girl, and he wants to be king of the mountain, king of the hill. And so there he is. And Achilles, who wants to be famous, wants glory. In modern day terms, he wants to be an influencer. He wants to be, I'm remembered. Yes, that's what we all do. We come thronging to Facebook, to Instagram, to TikTok, wanting to be famous, wanting to be glorious. Glory and power. That's what it's at stake here for the characters in this story. And I think we would be foolish to think we are immune to such desires for glory and power in our fast cars, in our empire of the modern world, such as it is. So I guess that's my challenge to you and to myself, to find these characters in ourselves. And it's an amazing story. And it's fascinating. Homer, my source for this is Homer, basically, with a few add-ons from other folks. But it's just a remarkable dramatic feat to get this story together in this way. And Homer shows the cost of anger and of ruthlessness. But he doesn't do it through showing, as we might expect, through the Greeks just attacking Troy and devouring it. Homer's Iliad skips the end of the war. It doesn't talk about it at all. It doesn't even get there. It focuses entirely on the anger of Achilles, the fight with Agamemnon, and the paradoxes involved. Achilles refuses to fight, and by so doing, he dooms hundreds, if not thousands, of his colleagues, his fellow soldiers, to death, because he is not a part of the fighting force. Well, that's all to come. But he focuses on the costs of anger, Homer does, but he does it within the Greek world, within the good guys, so to speak. And over in this story, the Trojans are seen as, they seem more wholesome and real and admirable. There they are in their city. They live in a cohesive world in which they're at peace with their surroundings, it seems. They have a city larger than anything the Greeks can even conceive of, more beautiful gardens in that city. They have oracles. They have that statue of Athena, let's not forget that, down there in the cavern beneath the city, to which they pray and make offerings to ensure the safety of their city. They seem, for the most part, a people at peace with themselves and with the gods. And then these thugs come, this gang from across the sea of devouring, angry Greeks, looking for what they can get, ready to smash and burn, and rob, to pillage the city. And so where do we want to be? Well, yeah, we want to be in that garden in Troy, one of the many gardens. That's where I want to be. And we get this wild scene of Zeus as well. Zeus strung up in that net by Hephaestus, captured. That's what gods fear the most, so it is said. They can't die, but they fear being unable to act, being restrained, bound up. It's the worst thing you can do. So Prometheus is bound at the beginning of this story. And here we have Zeus bound as well. And he fears that and remembers it. And he is thankful for what Thetis, the goddess of the deep waters, who he once desired, we must remember, who he once desired but refused because he heard from Prometheus that she would give birth to a son greater than her father's. So he was like, ooh, hands off. But he still has a link to her, a bond. And so when she comes, reminding him of how she helped him, he's like, okay, I'll do what you want, even though this is a nasty business. And what happens next? Well, we shall see. Thank you for listening to this story. And we will continue the story soon. And yeah, I hope it can nourish you in some way. Dark though it is, may we be nourished by this story. May it help us to see further into the world and into ourselves. Thanks to all the folks who have supported this podcast. These stories are free online. There's over 130 episodes, which is pretty cool. And I'm glad I can make it free. But that's possible because folks have supported this podcast. And yeah, if you can do so, please do so. Patreon.com is the place to do that. Patreon.com/storyjl. Patreon.com/storyjl. Once again, thank you for listening. Be well. May we be kind to each other. And take care.